Welcome back to 21 Questions presented here at KCSN. This is our questions and answers podcast where you guys ask us questions and various different hosts sit down, answer these questions for you guys. All of our questions are coming from the KCSN Discord. If you would like to be invited into there and ask some questions, you got to go to kcsn.com, subscribe to the weekly newsletter, and you will get an invite sent to you in your welcome email that gives you a link to the Discord where you can join, talk ball, come hang out, and you can get these questions asked. But this week, I am joined by the one, the only Seth Kaiser. Seth, how are we doing today, buddy?
I'm doing very, very well. How about yourself?
Listen, we were talking a little bit before we started just about a little busy week with, kids in school and stuff like that. So, we're probably going to try to crank through some questions pretty quick here as we try to get ready for the rest of the day and getting into the weekend of, everything. So first question here right off the top. I love this question. We're doing no nonsense 21 questions today. This is from Craig is Great in the Discord, also known as Grayson. He has a question, also an intrusive thought. Is Andy Heck overrated? I'm not even going to include any of his context. I am just going to ask you, is Andy Heck overrated?
I hear Andy Heck come under fire a fair amount from fans. I've talked to 3 different former Chiefs offensive linemen, and they all speak really highly of him. I've talked to a few people that work in the industry. They speak pretty highly of him. And so the difficulty for someone like me is I'm not really super qualified to make that distinction one way or another. And so I'm reliant on the people that have worked with him. The problem is when you've worked with someone, your personal opinion of the person can color your professional opinion of them. So there's no debate that Andy Heck is really well liked by the people that he's worked with, and he seems to be respected in the field. I will say, when you look at, the offensive line coaches, kind of the guys that, are pretty famous in the industry, like the former Pats guy, the guys with the Eagles now. I never remember names, but it feels like you see more consistent development than maybe you've seen with the Chiefs. But that said, I don't fall in line with the whole idea of the Chiefs haven't developed anyone, because they have. It is at least interesting, though, how at times disjointed things look in terms of the sum of the parts not being as good as the individual parts, particularly this year, where, or like when you talk about like Jawan Taylor and Trey Smith being kind of a weird fit next to each other stylistically, and how multiple years in, they still haven't seemed to solve that. So I'm providing kind of a non-answer answer. I guess what I would say is I could be talked into it, but no one that I've talked to who knows way more than me believes that. And so I guess my answer is kind of shrug.
No, I'm with you. Anybody I've talked to that's played in the league, that is coached in the league, has had nothing but praise for Andy Heck. I've watched some of his clinics, some of his seminars, and I've seen other offensive linemen too at various levels, like offensive line coaches. And Andy Heck, in my opinion, does a very good job articulating what his points are. And I actually think a lot of it's very good. Like, a lot of it makes sense to me. You can see how the theory of what he is teaching and coaching is going to work. You talk to guys that train offensive linemen, that coach offensive linemen, and they all have nothing but good things to say about Andy Heck. And then I can go back and I can find the examples. I can show you where Eric Fisher got better week after week. I can show you where LDT got better game after game, year after year. I understand it's not maybe at the same rate as what the Philadelphia Eagles are getting in their program right now, but I can go find the examples of guys that have improved, and specifically where they have, and where I think Andy Heck has done it like himself based on what I've heard him talk about. So I struggle to say overrated. I will say, I think that Andy Heck, as an offensive line coach specifically, is given a little bit of a difficult hand being an offensive line coach for a team that does not want to run the football, and a team that does not practice necessarily running the football, and doesn't necessarily practice true pass sets a ton. A lot of their drills in camp are a lot more like, hey, we're sticking to the first 5 yards and are essentially practicing quick sets. Like, it's just jumping out. We're fighting each other with our hands, and we're going to see what happens. And I'm not saying this is good or bad. The success of Andy Reid teams speaks for itself, but I do think it's kind of a hard spot to be an offensive line coach for him. So maybe the combination of the two together is created a little bit of a quote unquote overrated aspect, but as specifically as teaching offensive linemen how to play, I do think that Andy Heck's pretty good. And I think if he were to not be on the Chiefs, he would be picked up immediately by a lot of different teams.
Absolutely. He's well respected. And again, that doesn't mean everything, but it means something. And I think what a lot of people have this tendency, from what I've seen, if there's an error in play design, or, it seems like, things aren't getting really dialed up the way they ought to be, the instinct is to blame coaching. What's interesting to me, though, is if there's execution errors, the tendency is also to blame coaching. And so we end up in this situation where literally no matter what, we blame the coaches. And that's where it's one of those things where it's like, oh, well, the coaches should be holding them, like drops is an easy example. And that goes outside of offensive line. But I've had people tell me like, well, if the coaches were holding them accountable, wide receivers wouldn't be dropping the ball. It's like, you don't think they're coached to catch? Like, we have to be careful not to fall into that trap to assume that everything is coaching, especially with some of the limitations that are put in terms of time limits. Offensive line play is a problem mostly across the league. I do think, like you said, I think he's in a tough spot. And I would, if someone wanted to convince me that the sum of the parts isn't as good as it should be, I'd agree with that. But it's kind of impossible to separate that from what Andy Reid is doing in terms of what time is dedicated to.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, yeah, the next one is from B. Higgs. Also on _3 Pete starts today. So he's predicting 3 straight Super Bowl wins now. Cool. If you could choose one Chiefs acquisition at this point of the year, would you prefer A, blocking tight end, B, an aging veteran that used to have juice along the defensive line, so a veteran pass rusher, or C, a running back with average speed and vision, but a possible fumbling problem?
Golly, which he actually does a really good job summing up the issue with acquiring help this time of year. You're going to have baggage no matter what you do. I think, I guess, I don't know. They already have pass rushers that used to have juice. And so it's kind of like, I don't know if that really necessarily fixes anything. I think the closest thing to fixing something in terms of what's described there would probably be the running back, even though that's the least technically impactful of the three. But if you gave the Chiefs a running back with average speed and average vision, I think he'd eat in this offense. And not everything's perfect with how blocks are being set up. I mean, the Juwan Taylor's not a great run blocker, and Simmons can be hit or miss in terms of getting movement. But I mean, when he's executing combo blocks with Kingsley, they're getting movement. And you give a guy, I mean, even Kareem Hunt, when they're running, and I'm sure we'll end up talking about this at some point, when they're running like actual, inside zone, type stuff with combo blocks, and they're actually moving to the next level, they're moving people. And Hunt gets some movement there too. And so, I mean, average vision, Kareem Hunt might have a little above average vision, but he just has no explosion, like just none. So
just can't act on it. Just can't act on it.
Right. And that, and everyone thinks of that 0.1 second in terms of like, getting to the edge and stuff, but it matters so much with runs in the interior as well, because where you're at, the angle is changed. It's the difference between a linebacker hitting you 1 yard past the line of scrimmage versus 2 yards past the line of scrimmage. And that matters so much in terms of whether you're talking a 4-yard gain or a 6-yard gain, which 2nd and 4 is wildly different from 2nd and 6. So that's a long road to a short thought to say, I think I'd take the running back with average speed and vision with maybe a fumbling problem. None of those options are great.
No, they're not. And like, I could make a case for all of them. I think we'll have some other questions that are going to touch on tight end. So I'm going to leave that one, although I'm not against it, especially because that's probably like the lowest cost addition that I think might have the most like bang for buck. But give me the aging vet that used to have juice along the D-line. Specifically because, I mean, I'm being too practical, but Jadeveon Clowney's available. And I think he classifies as this, and I think he probably steps in. Judging by what I just saw from Zadarius Smith against the Chiefs, which wasn't dominant, but it was his first game of the year, he would be starting along the Chiefs. So why is Clowney, who's essentially an equivalent player, different, but an equivalent player at this point of his career to Smith, why would he not step in and be a starting defensive end?
Did the Cowboys snap him up?
Oh, did I miss that? That's possible I missed that too.
Yep. The Cowboys did finally snap him up. But I'm right there with you. Although what I've said to people is if the Chiefs were going to sign Jadeveon Clowney, they've had like 9 chances. And so I
tried once and he couldn't get in contact with him. he was MIA.
The Zadarius Smith thing is more frustrating to me simply because he's such a fit for what Spags wants. You got a big kind of power-based rusher that can set the edge well. He's a good force defender. Like I don't understand that one seemed like such a no-brainer to me. Like I understand it's frustrating. We all joke around about it, like Josh Uche not getting any playing time, and then you see him now, and yeah, he's not good against the run, but he as a pure pass rusher, he can help a team, like legitimately help a team, even a good pass rushing team like the Eagles. So, but I get it, right? Schematic fit, fair enough. Spags has earned the benefit of a doubt. Zadarius Smith seems pretty easy to me. That's just like, yeah, that guy. I mean, what does he play? 265, 270? Like he's got long arms. He sets the edge. He wins with power. He crushes the pocket. I'm like, what?
Can reduce him inside.
Yeah, like yes, he does all the things. He's like significantly better Mike Dana.
Yeah. Clowney does too. I missed the Clowney thing. So, egg on my face for that one. So now I have to rethink because that was the reason I went with that. It's because I wanted to say, hey, I have a specific player. Still, if there's another aging vet along the D line of that ilk, and I don't think there is. I also saw Preston Smith, who's not as good as Zadarius Smith or Clowney is right now. I know he just got signed too. So we might be running out of bodies for that one. So in that case, if you can find a running back, I could make a case for all those. I do think this defensive line though does need some help. You can't do the 63% blitz, game plan against one every week, but against every quarterback, that doesn't work. So they got to find a way to get pressure. And if George Karlaftis, Charles Omenihu, Mike Dana aren't going to help Chris Jones, who also might be taking a small step back. We'll have to see. It's 2 weeks. I don't want to jump the gun, but he might not be the same guy he was 2 years ago. That's what getting into your 30s does to an NFL player, right? And so they need some help there. I just don't know if that's going to be available. So yeah, we'll have to see which one, if they add anybody. I doubt they add anybody significant throughout the year. That does not seem to be the Chiefs' MO at this point in time. Yes, true or false from Arrow. Josh Simmons is the first key player of the second Mahomes era. So I'm going to essentially call this players that were acquired post Patrick Mahomes being the full-time starter. Is he the first key piece of that?
I would say no if it's you're saying after Mahomes became the full-time starter.
That might not be fair. So essentially, I was trying to remove Travis Kelce and Chris Jones from this. Right. And then I realized Creed Humphrey probably would be my answer for this. And he is going to be part of the first Mahomes era. So I guess we're going to kind of say after 2022. I think the team probably, I think we can all agree the team went through a pretty big change from 2021 to 2022. So from that point on, is Josh Simmons the first key player, key addition to that team?
You know what? I think, and I'm doing my little looking at the all-time draft history here on PFR. And so if we're starting in 2023, which I do think is a good delineation to make, I think 2022, one could argue that trading Tyreek Hill started this new era, but I don't know. I think it's good in terms of Patrick Mahomes to start in 2023. And I think there's an argument to be made that Simmons is the first core piece to be added from 2023 on. Him or Rashee Rice is I think Rice, because of everything that's gone on, that flies really under the radar. But I think Rice is going to be a long-term Chief. I think he's going to play really well this year, and they're going to offer him a team-friendly extension and be like, hey, I hear you might need some money to resolve some restitution issues. We call that the 2019 Tyreek Hill move. See if we can get him to sign a much more friendly extension than he might get otherwise. So I think Rashee Rice would be one, and I think Simmons so far is the only other one. And that's we might be maybe Xavier Worthy, we'll see. But I think we might be hitting on something there with the fact that everyone else is just kind of a shrug.
They're good. It's a lot of singles and doubles additions, both in the draft and free agency. Not a lot of home runs when you are he's still playing right now, right? But Chris Jones was obviously a home run piece. Travis Kelce, a home run piece. You're not Creed Humphrey getting those. Now, I will say it depends on when we're making this 2022 line. Does Trent McDuffie count? I feel like Trent McDuffie also has a chance to be a key piece. Now, what do they choose to do with him? Do they choose to make him a key component of their defense or not? They've been a little wishy-washy on how they treat secondary players. So there's a chance that they decide to not make him a key piece. I would be very upset. I don't want to go down that road right now. So he's in the options that Yeah, I think Josh Simmons might be up there. And I agree that with Rice and Worthy, there's a chance. But here's the thing: for Rashee Rice, we've seen 1 year and a handful of games, and Xavier Worthy, we've seen 1 year. We haven't really seen them very long yet. Obviously, we haven't for Simmons either. I'm just saying, we aren't quite to the point yet where I know for a fact that those guys are building blocks. Maybe they can be, and I think Rice will be from what we've seen. But we are dealing with a guy that has been suspended and this year with injury now. If those are the kind of things that plague him more than just the beginning of his career, if those things continue, then that probably can't factor into being a key piece either. So yeah, Simmons is on the short list. At the very least, Simmons is on the short list. And through 2 weeks now, I can't say anything, but a lot of high hopes there, Seth.
Yeah. One thing, since we're being kind of serious and discouraging today, I think it says something that even when we're kind of factoring in the 2022 draft, that neither of us said George Karlaftis' name. They're treating him like a key piece. They signed him to an extension like a key piece. Through 2 weeks, the returns on him being your second best pass rusher aren't great. And they signed him at a very reasonable contract overall, but it is still a contract that will somewhat hinder some of the moves you can make on the defensive line. And the issue with George is the same issue that it's been for the last 2 years. Good player, good fit with Spag's system, executes things well, can play pretty strong against the run in certain aspects, can go inside, outside, high effort guy, et cetera, et cetera. But if he's your second best pass rusher, I think you're in trouble because you need a guy who can win one-on-one at higher than, what does he win one-on-one at? A 10% clip, if that?
I think it's a little lower this year so far, yeah. And it's the quick pressure rates that are probably even worse if you're going to display that out. He just, even in one-on-ones, because he gets a fair amount of one-on-ones, he just doesn't hardly ever win quickly. And that's a rough pairing, especially if you no longer have a all-pro for, best defensive tackle in the league, best pass rusher next to you. If you're just winning at the rate that he does as slowly as he does, that can be a bit of a pickle.
Yeah. And so that's something that's going to be really interesting to me in terms of how they view the core of the defense moving forward. I understand why George's deal got done and Trent McDuffie's didn't, because Trent McDuffie has no reason to do anything other than a top of the market cornerback deal. And you already said we're not going to go too far down this road. I will say, if Trent isn't treated like a cornerstone piece, I'm going to be so upset. He's so clearly like him and Chris last year were like this in terms of who's the best player on the defense. Mm-hmm. And it is hard to give Chris Jones a run for his money on who the best player on a defense is, especially. And that was with Trent not getting to play in the slot very much because they keep trying to make Jabari Connor as a big slot happen. And I just wish watch Mean Girls and hear that fetch is not going to happen. But whatever. I see you see all these things. The problem with you and me is we get fired up about some of the same stuff and we get really upset because I'm just like, oh, we'll just put Connor back in the nickel again. Will we? That's the plan again? We got nothing else. Please, Noel Williams, be good. But anyway, I do think if you go 2022 on, I think your potential core guys would be, in theory, Simmons, McDuffie, Rice, maybe Worthy. I can't. I'm so bummed Worthy got hurt. I think they had big plans for him early in the season, and that's just really disappointing.
Well, hey, listen, hopefully we get to watch all these guys on the field here. We're going to get to this Sunday evening. Hopefully we get to keep watching them. And you guys, all Chiefs fans, you guys can be on the field at the 50 inside of GEHA Field for the official coin toss at a Chiefs home game this season. All you have to do is visit chiefs.com/GEHA right now. You can enter to win a chance to be on the field for a once-in-a-lifetime view of the pregame coin toss as the Chiefs are coming off. Ooh, that's going to be a good one. Plus, you can score other exclusive prizes. Enter for a chance to win at chiefs.com/GEHA. GEHA is a proud partner of the Kansas City Chiefs. And we will be right back after this quick break to answer more of your guys' questions.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story, like Brain Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Brain Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner in possible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Welcome back to 21 Questions here at KCSN, where Seth and I are going through a handful of questions. We just talked about key pieces to this Chiefs team. One of those key pieces over the years has been Travis Kelce. Well, now we have a question, right? This is from Tag the Tiger. What is happening with the tight end room? Noah, great, has been a ghost. Wiley has been inactive the last few games. Travis is struggling, and maybe we can even talk about the struggling for Travis Kelce is he's playing okay, right? Like, he's still producing well. He's separating. I think I saw he was one of the highest separating tight ends in the league. There's still a little, he's clearly not hit his prime. And any hope with Burningstool? Is there any hope with Burningstool coming back from the IR? Finally, can anyone block? Tag has a lot of questions about the tight end room. So Seth, I'll just kind of lump them all together. What do you think is going on overall in this tight end room? And will it get better as the season goes on?
I guess I would say in terms of Noah Gray, this is really dangerous 2 weeks into a season, especially against two of the better defenses in the league and two of the best coach defenses in the league. Minter and Fangio, I mean, if I were to create like a top 6 list of defensive coordinators, both of them would probably be on it. And so that's one thing that fans should really keep in mind. Give it a few weeks. We'll see. Like, I'm worried. I'm real worried, but there's also just some stuff here. And with a 2-week sample size, like with Noah Gray, I mean, so let's say Mahomes properly layers a throw against zone look on the first drive against the Eagles. What is that? A 25, 30-yard gain. Now all of a sudden people are like, oh man, big play from Noah Gray. That's through 2 games. That's how thin the line can be between success and failure. I am surprised he hasn't been a little more involved in the offense so far, especially with the issues they've got at receiver in terms of injuries. Tunyon, of all of them, I think is the best blocker of the bunch. And so I think they're just trying to figure out how to get him on the field. You struck on something with Travis Kelce. The stat came out like in separation. On film, running routes, separating in terms of explosion, movement, I think Kelce looks better than he did in 24 or 23. Like, he looks a little bit quicker, looks a little bit more explosive. Now whether that can keep up all year, we'll see. Father time, all that. He just happens to have made 3 really devastatingly tough plays. One, obviously taking out Worthy. And to be fair, and I've said this in multiple places, Worthy's got to understand spacing there too, and at least keep half an eye out. Should he have expected Travis to let himself get jammed into oblivion by Derwin James? No. Should he have maybe looked forward for a second while running full speed? Yes. Like, when you're running mesh, my understanding is, I mean, if you're the underneath receiver, you got to at least check. Like, keep an eye out. Otherwise, you might run headfirst into a brick wall. Man, that was rough. But Kelce was obviously more at fault there. There's a reason it upset him so much, and he even said it affected him a lot of that game. And I get that. Then, obviously, later in the game, rather than continuing to run through his route, he slows up. Really, the coverage didn't call for it. Should have been a touchdown. And again, in a 2-game sample size, losing a pair of touchdowns, because of course there's then the drop against the Eagles, which one could argue is probably the worst play of the season in terms of swinging a game. I think that one play might have swung that game in terms of everything it did. You know, the defense could have maybe held firmer, but I mean, they got put in a lousy position. You're talking, you know, a 14-point swing in some senses there, because they would have at least had to work for it. The defense was playing really well. So that's the problem with Kelce. He looks better on film, but he's just made multiple really bad plays in moments where he's normally come through. That's kind of, to me, probably a sample size thing. I think as the season moves along, I think that evens out, especially if he keeps moving the way he's currently moving. I think we'll see that even out over time. Teams are still really keen on him because they're not afraid of, you know, anyone else. And that's going to be tough for him. I think Worthy coming back will help, provided he doesn't lay him out again.
Yeah. Yeah, so for Travis Kelce, he definitely moves, like just as an athlete, I definitely think he's moving better than he had definitely last year. And even in 2023, by the time we got to the Super Bowl, it actually felt like he was moving a little better again. I think coming back from that injury that kept him out to start the year, there was some getting back into that shape and everything, but he's clearly moving better. I do wonder though, and I think we've noticed that the last couple of years, there's been a little bit less cohesion between him and Mahomes on some of the freelance plays, some of the reads they make. And I think you're getting that even more this year, even on passes not thrown, but it almost feels like Mahomes is even a tick later than he used to be on throwing some of those mind meld routes, as they call it. And I really do wonder if Kelce, at this point of his career, he's physically in better shape, but I wonder mentally if he's having to focus so hard on his movement because he has gotten older. It's not what it once was, that I do wonder if he is just mentally playing a half step behind. Because even talking about that goal line play, I understand that can happen any point in time, but to just not be able to be in position to get his head around and react to it quite when he did, knowing that the ball's going to be coming in hot and there's going to be guys trying to get their hands up, it just feels like a play that, and he even said this, I believe, that in years past, he probably makes. He probably gets his head around. So I just wonder, we're getting to the point where he's a veteran player. He might be in his last year, one of his last couple. There's an expected slowing down. And while it might not be as physical this year, the ability to tie his physical movement with the mental aspect of the game might be a little bit hindered. And that's fine. Quit putting him in positions that he has to be the entire offense. That's how you counter that when you have a veteran player. I understand the injuries play a role in that, but Kelce's being asked to do too much. That's just what it is. He's being asked to be the guy that saves the offense as a receiver, and that's what worked in 2022 and before. But now that can't be your plan. So they need to not get more, just take some off his plate, and I think Kelce will look better. The rest of the tight ends, Noah Gray's been a little disappointing for me this year, and it's early, but watching Josh Uche beat him on a run play, on it's just a on the move block, not being able to seal out Josh Uche, that hurts my soul. That's rough. Josh Uche literally couldn't play the run for Bill Belichick or Steve Spagnuolo. They said, no, we will not put you on the field if it's even a potential for a run play. And here's your blocking tight end gets beat by that. One play sample, but that's tough. And then watching all the other times where Noah Gray gets condensed down, he gets smashed down, it squeezes the gap, making it hard for Trey Smith to pull through on power. All the times that he's slipping, getting to the second level, just his blocking hasn't been very good this year. And I think that's been very limiting for the run game to expand. They just don't have a tight end that they can use to block. So tight end room's in a rough spot right now because a lot of guys with similar skill sets, and hopefully Robert Tonyan and Big Bob gets to play a little bit more and we can see if he can add a different element. But right now, I just think you have a lot of guys with similar skill sets and none of them can take that physical aspect that you need from one of those guys in the run game in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. That play with Uche, that was rough because it, like you said, it was a move block. It's not like this was even lining up at the line of scrimmage and slamming ahead, which isn't. Gray's done that in the past too against better run defenders than Josh Uche. So that was tough to watch. Now, obviously, Uche was kind of playing with his hair on fire, and he posted after the game. Clearly, it bothered him what happened last year. But no, that's the tight end room. It is tough, and so yeah, honestly, with the struggles they're having in terms of some of the blocking they're getting there, you have to either change up what you're asking them to do or let Tonyan play a little more and see if that makes a difference. Because he's not an incompetent pass catcher. You can kind of put him in, he's a more veteran, he's better than Blake Bell was at it. He can find a soft spot in his zone a little bit. He's got reliable hands. So it's not like he's a net negative on the field. Yeah. If he ends up in a pass down, he'll catch the ball if you throw it to him. But man, get someone who can help the tackles get some movement, a little bit. That would just be nice to see. So yeah, it's you can tell you and me are both frustrated with the offense.
Yeah, no, it is. And the worst part is I just don't know there's a fix. I've been on KCSN.com. I guess when you guys are listening to this, it should already be out. I came out on Thursday. I wrote an article about just the issues with the run game. And the moral of it was I just don't think there's an easy fix. I know what all the simple fixes everyone wants. A new running back, just run more gap stuff. And I get it all, but I can also tell you real quick, just why none of that is going to be as easy as we think it is, because it's just the whole system right now. And so it's very frustrating to try to watch this team be unable to run the football despite getting so many advantageous looks and not having a good answer for it. So again, we don't need to boil that down. We'll be here all day and I know we got things to do. So Veach, do your thing. Ask, purely hypothetical, of course, but let's say Andy Reid decides to call it after this year in his final year of coaching. Who is your top pick or two to replace him as the head coach without having to trade? So you can't pick a head coach that is, cemented into a good job already to replace him if they were wiping the slate completely. So this is asking for a non-hire from within to be the head coach.
Man, it would have been Ben Johnson before this year.
Yeah.
And I'm not allowed to trade, so I can't throw 2 first-round picks at Minnesota for KOC. Which, by the way, I would do. In a heartbeat. But that's, again, I'm not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Man, a lot of the offensive coordinator types that have shown a real gifting with their systems and stuff got hired this last cycle.
They have.
And so I, honest to goodness, don't have an answer to that off the top of my head.
I don't have a good one. I'm with you. I was looking at it. I was like, ooh, I don't know what actually is available. I'd have to really start digging into some guys. One name that creeps up here in my mind, and it seems, I think it's too early, but Joe Brady, been coordinating for the Buffalo Bills. I like his second stint here as an offensive coordinator for the Bills a lot better than it was for the Panthers, but I like that he is, one, working with a really good quarterback, doing the things that, one, Josh Allen likes, but then two, he's also made him do some stuff, not that Josh Allen didn't like, but he's made him try other things. It hasn't just been, hey, Josh, what do you want to do? It's, okay, hey, why don't we also try this? Because I think it'll work. And then Josh has accepted it. I do think just his mentality about it, I think would be intriguing. I don't know if I'm ready to entrust him with an entire organization, though. If I get to keep Spags around to do all the defensive stuff and just add in Joe Brady, yeah, I think so. So he's just one guy on the list. Obviously, Mike McDaniel seems like he's probably on the outs for Miami. I don't know if I want that as a head coach right now. I don't like the trajectory that the Dolphins went as an organization. Offensive coordinator, sure. But if we're talking purely as a head coach, I can't think of a lot more guys that I'm really chomping at the bit right now or champing, I believe it is, at the bit right now to bring in.
I think I like the Brady suggestion. One thing that I would add to that in terms of with Buffalo, and it's always, here's the caveat. Doing well as an offensive coordinator does not mean you'll be a good head coach. And frequently the two are barely related, even if you're a play caller. One thing I like about Brady, though, is they've been very multiple in how they've approached things. Their offense has looked very different in different seasons and even different phases of seasons under Brady. And I think that's important. McDaniel, I agree with you. I personally think he's going to get fired during the season, and I would love it if the Chiefs brought him in as a consultant on the coaching staff. But that's partly, and again, we would be here all day if we went down this. I think the offensive staff desperately needs new voices. And this isn't Matt Nagy's the reason everything's going wrong. That's just not true. It's Andy Reid's offense. I've really appreciated Mitch Schwartz on Twitter just being like, guys, it's Andy's offense. It's always been Andy's offense. It's always going to be Andy's offense. However, right now, all the voices in the room are guys that have been there for years. And they're guys that, basically have all the same philosophy. I would love to see them bring in someone of the kind of McDaniel type, any of that kind of McVay, Shanahan-y type stuff. Or bring in a Kubiak. I don't care. Anyone who does things different. Also, just on a side note, it's also because Kubiak is the only guy that consistently pants his Spags, and I don't understand how. Well, LaFleur did too, but I like
similar guy though.
Yeah, similar. Yeah. And so you've got that similar background, that under center play action boot stuff just destroys Spag's system, and it makes me crazy. Every time you see it, I'm like, they run the play action, they start to boot. I'm like, someone is going to be so wide open in the flat in the next 5 seconds. Yep, there he is, 20-yard gain to the fullback. So I think Brady might be the best idea out of all of them, just because he's been multiple. He's worked with an elite quarterback. He's really helped with the development to even take another level, because it's worth noting, for all the talk about the skill position issues in Kansas City, yes, Buffalo's offensive line has overall been better, but it's not like they have incredible skill position players there, and they're making it work. And it's not, that's where this is an interesting conversation to have. And again, I know you think a lot about this too. something that I've been kind of thinking more and more lately. Because the conversation now is, well, when Rice and Worthy come back. So here's my question. If your offense needs Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce playing like Travis Kelce, and your number 2 tight end to play really well, and Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, and a good offensive line, what exactly is your offensive system doing then? It's like, well, as long as and we need a better running back. So as long as we have good players literally everywhere, the offense is going to be good. Well, yeah, that's just true. And I got to be careful here. This is going to get me in trouble. Andy has proven it so many times, but like things look pretty similar so far this year to what we saw last year. And the offensive line is better this year.
Yeah.
And honestly, the receiver room is better too right now because Tyquan Thornton, he's opening up deep. Like, he's actually been better than I thought he would be. And so you've got someone who's opening things up deep. You've got Hollywood Brown. Like, that's better than they were this time after Rice got hurt, when it was like Worthy and, you look around the room, you're like, oh, crap. So it's just something worth keeping in mind when you talk about like Joe Brady or someone like that. Someone who's done more with less. Unless we suddenly think Josh Allen's a significantly better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes, and no one who's sane thinks that. So it's just an interesting question.
Yeah, and I'm going to stick to it because we had some more questions. I'm not going to, a bunch of different people asked about various. If the Chiefs were to bring in an outside name, this is no longer a head coach. This would just be bringing in outside influence. So since we're on the subject, I would say Todd Monken would be another guy I would consider for a head coaching job. He's been an offensive coordinator in multiple different NFL teams. Obviously had a ton of success in Georgia. I like what he's doing with the Ravens right now. Again, I don't know entirely about giving him the whole team yet. I believe he was the head coach at Southern Mississippi, maybe back in like the mid 2000 teens. So just Todd Monken would be another name on the list I'd be intrigued to hear by. But if we're just talking like other voices to bring in, I would love Mike Kafka to be back. I know he's still an Andy Reid guy. And that's something that you and I have both harped on is hey, we need less Andy Reid guys because you need someone to present other processes, other avenues to get to answers. Not necessarily a different answer, just another way to think about getting there. And while I think Kafka still pulls from the Andy Reid process, just like Nagy and Eric Bieniemy and everybody else on staff, I do think that he showed a little bit more ability to think outside of the, mid 2000s West Coast offense box than these other guys have. And so while he might not ever be the play caller or whatever while Andy's here, I do think he just presents enough different ideas that he would matter. Mike LaFleur, he's offensive coordinating. He's with the Rams now, I think. But he's another guy from that, Shanny McVay kind of tree, just trying to think of other minds that come from different systems that I would love them to try to incorporate. Or we talked about Mike McDaniel earlier. Hey, Mike McDaniel, you want to come in and be, I guess we'd have to figure out what to do with Nagy. We want to come in and be an offensive coordinator and run game coordinator, like Eric Bieniemy used to be titled or whatever. Perfect. Yeah. That's the great role for a Mike McDaniel right now. It's there's names out there that I think could work in KC if one, Andy would be willing to hire an outside name, and two, you figure out what to do with Matt Nagy, who I don't think Andy will ever fire. I just don't know where you could possibly title or stash him to keep him on the staff while also bringing in somebody else.
Right. And while Nagy is not all that ails the Chiefs, and I've seen the numbers, I've seen the splits.
Yes.
Go watch the Chicago Bears run game if you think that Eric Bieniemy was the straw that stirred the drink in Kansas City. And that's not a shot at EB, who I appreciate, right. But I mean, we've got years of evidence of his offenses to say whether or not he was the one that was really making everything happen. Yeah, I completely agree. The outside voice stuff. And I love the way you framed that, finding different ways to get to the same answers, because this year so far, it looks like they're trying all the same ways to get to the same answers. And that's just not going to cut it.
No, that's been the Andy Reid thing for a long time, right? And this is no shot at Matt Nagy. I think Matt Nagy as an offensive coordinator and not Andy Reid would be just fine. I think the problem is he's getting into those meetings with Andy Reid, and this is pure speculation. I have no idea. I just think that Matt Nagy's in these rooms and he's given his work that he's working on, but his process to get these plays that he wants, the ways he wants to attack coverage is the exact same that Andy's going to have. And so they're just comparing notes and they're like, oh, this is all the same thing. It looks like we copied off each other. And there's nothing wrong with that until your offense starts to feel stale, like you're running a 2007 Philadelphia Eagles playbook minus the 21 personnel. and nobody's trying to present anything new from there. So like this is a big long tangent. We need to get back on track. So we're going to take a quick break, and we come back. We're going to answer some fun questions from you guys.
What's up, guys? I'm BJ Kissel, founder and CEO of KC Sports Network, and I'm here to talk to Kansas City businesses. If you rely on technology, you need an IT support team that's not just another vendor, but a true IT partner. That's how I want to introduce you to my friend and neighbor, KJ Miller. He is a VCIO at ThrottleNet, the Midwest's highest rated and most reviewed IT support company. They've been in business for more than 25 years, helping companies stay secure, productive, and ahead of the curve. They aren't just IT support, but they provide data security, IT strategy, and cloud software services. They do it all, and their reviews show they do it better than anyone else. So if you want to hear about how ThrottleNet can help your local business, join the conversation with myself, KJ Miller from ThrottleNet, and our resident genius from KC Sports Network when it comes to IT, at least as he's affectionately known by us, Mr. Craig Stout. Click the link in the description to hear how ThrottleNet can help you.
What's up, everybody? Benny Heiss with KCSN, betting analyst for Kansas City Sports Network. And Missouri, get ready. The wait is almost over because DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is coming soon to the Show Me State. And guess what? You can get started today because new Missouri customers can get $300 in bonus bets once DraftKings Sportsbook launches on December 1st. You can download it now, place a $5 bet once they are live. Guys, DK Sportsbook brings everything you need to really elevate your game day. You got live in-game betting, super fast payouts, endless ways to get in on the action, all right from your phone. And when they are live in Missouri, you're going to be betting with the Sportsbook app trusted by millions. It is safe, secure, fast money withdrawals. That's the place you want to play. So here's what you do. You download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the code KCSN to grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when DraftKings Sportsbook goes live on December 1st. That is code KCSN in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook. Remember, if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. You must be 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after they're issued. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms are available at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, welcome back to the tail end here of 21 questions. We're going to answer just a couple of non-Chiefs related questions for you guys and let everybody get on with the rest of their day. So, first was from Mike Denny, and this is directly for you, Seth. Doesn't concern me at all. Seth, what are 2 things you are better at than LeBron James?
2 things that I'm better at than LeBron James. I assume that I can give a really cohesive, concise Romans Road to Salvation sermon better than he could. So I've got that going for me. And then I think the other thing is I think I would be able to probably, beyond the obvious, like I can probably practice law better than he can, that's just, 11 years of experience, hopefully. And then the other thing, I can do a better job making a case for why Jamal Charles belongs in the Hall of Fame than he could.
That's good. Listen, I thought you were going to go with not tell useless lies. Not just make up the most random, useless things that are blatantly false of all time. I love LeBron James. I'm not going to get into GOAT basketball player debates here. I love LeBron James. I just think it's hilarious that he lies about the most ridiculously inconsequential things.
Yeah, like why do that? Like I genuinely don't understand that. It doesn't make sense because he and I are about the same age. I'm just like, buddy, you don't have to do this. Like you don't like. But that's so those are the things that I think I do. They all involve presenting thoughts, I guess.
You know what I think, and I'm not great at this one. I think I could beat him in a game of limbo because he's just got a long way to get down. That would be tough.
That would be tough. I could not because I've got the bend of George Karlaftis. So.
Oh no. Gotta eat less rice from Chipotle. All right. Hokie Chief, follow-up. Rank KCSN podcasters as judges in the Minnesota legal system. We had a lot of Minnesota legal system questions, but this one was my favorite one.
Mm-hmm. Number 1 is obviously going to be Craig. Just because he knows everything about everything from what I've seen. Like, there's just not a lot he doesn't have a lot of knowledge on. So I think Craig, I think at the bottom is Nate Taylor. Because, you need someone who can focus during a trial, guys. And, they would be, taking testimony, and be like, and did you see the defendant there? Yes, I did. And Nate would be like, whoo-hoo! Oh, and like, you can't have that. You can't have that in the trial.
He's got to sit in a chair and not lay on a hotel bed.
Yes, exactly. I mean, his marvelous calves wouldn't even be on display under that robe. It would be a waste. So I can tell you, Craig would be at the top. I would have Nate at the bottom. I think I would say there's like a 3-way tie for that number 2 spot between you, Maddie, and Briscoe and BJ. Although BJ's the boss, I don't know if he really counts as a podcaster. And I think a dark horse, excellent candidate as a judge would be Tucker D. Franklin. I assume the D stands for good judge. So that's a bit I do. I just do the D stands for something that's not a D. So Tucker is someone who would really be conscientious about it and try to do the right thing. I think you're really decisive, and so is BJ. And Briscoe is just annoyingly good at most things he does. It's actually one of his worst traits. Most things that he tries to do within the field of work and stuff, he's generally pretty good at it. It's easily his worst trait, one of many terrible traits. Second worst would be Kent Swanson, just because.
Absolutely.
Court wouldn't get started till like 10:50 every day because he'd be sitting there brushing his hair and doing that. And just like those things take forever. Now, some of us don't have that problem because, our hair is slowly betraying us.
I love these rings. All I cared was being ranked ahead of Kent. And so because I'm ranked ahead of Kent, we call that a win. And then we're going to move on to our final question. This is from the Big Institution's biggest fan. The Big Institution is Craig Stout, the best KCSN podcaster as a potential Minnesota legal system judge. He asks, as you transition from a regular fan to an analyst to connected analyst, what things are obvious now that you would have never considered when you were just a fan? So essentially, like, what have you learned now that you have gotten more connected following the team that you had no idea about when you were just a diehard regular fan?
Man, I think probably both things are things that are kind of disappointing. So I hesitate to do this. You know what? I've been doing this a long time. I got a secure day job. The first thing would be how separated the business and the football operations are for a team.
Ooh, yeah.
And how interestingly the business side can be run, including PR. And I'm going to leave that at that. And, sometimes people just make different decisions than what I would do. But I think how self-serious NFL teams are is one of the funnier things to me in terms of conversations that I've had to have about, like, being able to go a certain place, see certain things. And my response is, you understand I'm a child protection attorney, right? Like I have to deal with actually important confidential information daily that literally no one will ever tell you. And so those are funny conversations. That's something that's always interesting because you just don't see it, how separate the business side and the football side is.
Yep.
Okay. And that includes like how contracts work, all that stuff. That's just a big deal. Second thing would be how certain things matter in terms of chances players get, playing time to an extent. Like with the Chiefs, no one really tells Andy Reid what to do. That's not how that's ever going to work in the Chiefs organization, ever. But in terms of who gets chances and how things get done, and some of the, again, like almost a split you'll see at times between like your scouting department and what your coaches want, and some like Josh Uche. Anyway, I'm sorry, I had something in my throat. That's one that I didn't really realize how much that can matter. And the final thing, and this is not specific to the Chiefs, so if someone thinks that I'm taking a pot shot here, I'm not. The Chiefs are generally much better run than a lot of organizations. And that's the thing, is how poorly a lot of NFL organizations are run. There's a lot of assumptions that are made because these are multi-billion-dollar companies, essentially, a bunch of individualized multi-billion-dollar companies among the umbrella of, the NFL. And there's an assumption that because of that, like, the best decisions are always going to get made. I'll just tell you flat out, there are so many high school coaches in America who know X's and O's better than guys who work in the pros. And that is a stone cold fact. And there are multiple guys working for colleges or high schools who scout players better. That's just a stone cold fact. Now, it doesn't mean everyone who works in the NFL is terrible, but nepotism matters, and not just nepotism in the sense of who's related to who, but who you know. It's like any other field. Who you know matters an incredible amount. How well you present in meetings matters an incredible amount. And so I guess to me, the way that the business side of the NFL, and even like for coaching hires, for GM hires and stuff, the way it's so similar to the way the regular world works is really, really interesting to me. I really wish I had like a really exciting, fun one, but honestly, there's a reason why I like to maintain my distance a little bit, because here's a more fun one. I'm doing 4. Sorry, Maddie.
You're good.
How complicated NFL scheme is. And now I know more about how it works within the Chiefs building than I do other places. And my understanding is Reid's system is just a tougher animal. But so many people don't understand that, like, when the Chiefs call, I don't know, they call the Mills concept on the left side of the field there. Well, it's not like in Madden where that's all that's happening right there. The number of site adjustments and different changes that can be made based not just at the line of scrimmage where, Mahomes can do whatever he wants there, but even as the play unfolds. And it's not just Travis Kelce. Like, site adjustments are a big deal in the Chiefs offense. And sometimes I think maybe too big a deal, because I think it slows guys down occasionally, especially if they're not savants at it, but that's neither here nor there. But that, to me, like, the number of permutations for each play is something I don't think people understand. And it's one reason I sound more hesitant now when I say, receiver X is supposed to do Y here. I caveat it and I hedge so much, because it's like, from what I can tell, this is what he should be doing based on the combination around him. And I could be like dead certain, like when I'm looking at it, and I'm like, well, this is clearly what he's trying to do. But I just know how much I don't know. So that's the final thing.
Yeah, no, let's see. For the Chiefs specifically, I'm with the route concept aspect. I'm trying not to get too X and O bogged down here, but you just said that. And like, that is something that bugs me a little bit, is like looking through versions of Andy Reid, Doug Peterson playbooks that I have seen. Way too many routes have adjustments that can be made based on all the coverages. And I don't know how you were supposed to drill down the technique to running a 15-yard dig if there's 5 different ways it plays out in terms of depth, the type of cut you're taking, the setup for your cut every single time. It almost feels like there's a little too much, hey, go find grass, and not a much detail oriented. And that's not a wide receiver coach thing. That is in these playbooks. So that bugs me. In terms of being connected to the NFL, one thing you said, front offices not being infallible. Yes, I have heard some crazy stories about front offices or coaches, but front offices in particular, making insane decisions just because, not even because they thought it was a good decision, making insane decisions for crazy, ludicrous reasons. And so when you as a fan are like, oh, the team did this, so they know more than you, they must be right. Most of the time, not always. Definitely not always. They make decisions on a whim or off of very unstable reasons all the time. So that's one. 2, and this one I don't think we touched on. This is a big one for me. How close so many moves, transactions, trades, signings get, but don't happen, that you never hear a word about. And so when you hear about the ones, sources say team X was interested in player Y, it doesn't happen, and fans are like, oh, did we even try? That must have been fake. It was a lie. You know what? It's not always a lie. Sometimes there actually was somebody in the building that said this because they were trying to. Other times you don't hear about it and things get close. I have not heard anything about this particular player, but I'm going to use it as an example. Micah Parsons just gets traded. Am I upset as a Chiefs fan that there has been no buzz that the Chiefs were interested in acquiring him, especially given the price tag that he got traded for? Absolutely. If I come to find out 2-3 years from now that the Chiefs were this close to trading him, they were so close, let's say they had a jersey made up for him and it was ready to be announced from the PR team, I'm not shocked anymore, because I've heard of stories like that happening with other very big name players. The teams do a lot more work that we will never hear about on making their team better, worse, whatever it may be. And just from the outside, when you're just a fan with no ability to hear these things, you're like, Why didn't they get better in the secondary? Why hasn't this team added a corner? Why haven't they done this, that, or the other? They are trying. They do try a lot more, I think, than you see as a casual fan. You just don't always hear about it. So yeah, that's the biggest one for me. It's just how many players were almost Chiefs that I have heard about over the years, whether it's draft, trades, free agency. There's a lot more than I think fans ever hear about.
That's a really good one too. Yeah.
All righty, fellas. That is the end of 21 questions for us. Thank you, Seth, so much for joining me. We got you out of here in, under an hour. Look at us go. Look at us. We are doing a great job. All right. We appreciate everybody for sending in questions, everybody for listening. Hopefully next week's 21 questions, the Chiefs have a win, and whoever is up here does not have to have so many negative thoughts about the answers. Not that your guys' questions were negative. Our thoughts on them were mostly negative. So Chiefs are going to get a nice, good win Sunday night. And then next week's 21 questions will be a lot more happy. But either way, we appreciate everybody that sent in questions. Thank you.